Hey YouTube, it's Jay. I did a video a while back where I talked about how I mark the table, but it's changed since then. So I wanted to give you an updated video showing you how to mark your table and in a way that is accurate, permanent, and deals with all of the situations that you may deal with. So first, now my table's already marked. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to I'm going to leave the cap on the marker. I will not be remarking the table. I wanted it to be perfect, so I spent hours making sure every single mark on it was exactly right. You don't have to spend that much time. You can do this in about a half an hour with the right tools. And speaking of the right tools, let's go ahead and take a look at what you're going to need. A couple things to go over before we begin. So first of all, on these markings, I don't mind marking all the games on my table. Now, some people will like a cleaner look to it and will want to mark as little as possible, and that's fine. If it was me and I was going to be minimalist about it, I would do the head string, I would do the foot spot, and I would do the straight line down to the end. And that's all I would do. That gives you an incredible amount of flexibility. It gives you everything you need to align the rack, to spot balls, and to ensure that you're inside the kitchen when you're supposed to be inside the kitchen. When you watch a pro tournament on whether it's here on YouTube or some other platform, when you watch a pro tournament, you don't see any markings on the table, okay? Unless it's straight pool, in which case you'll see the rack. Everything else is just a dot, okay? And they do that so that it doesn't show up on TV. Okay, so if it's 9-ball, they'll take the magic rack, they'll figure out where the head spot is, and they'll put a dot there. Then they'll put the rack on it. They'll get it straight with the rack on the table, and they'll put a dot in each of the corners, or if it's turtle rack, in each of the spots, so that the players can come up and do this. So the cool thing about the camera is when you're looking at this on my camera, unless I go close up on it, you don't see the markings. And the same is true for the TV table, and since they only put dots where they need them, they don't show up on the camera. So the main point I'm getting to here is that you don't have to do all of the markings that I do. I do it because, frankly, I don't even see the markings when I'm playing. The only time I even know that they're there is when I'm actually using them. Some players may feel that this is overkill. It suits me. Mark as much or as little of the table as you'd like. It's up to you. It's your table. Alright, here are all of the tools that you're going to need. I will put a list of them down in the description. First, you're going to need a tripod. This is used to hold the laser and keep it steady. You're going to need the mount, of course, for the tripod, which you'll attach to the laser to keep it going. You're going to need a long straight edge, one that's long enough to go almost side to side on the table. You're going to need a short straight edge for ease of use on some of the smaller markings. You're going to need a laser level. I use one that's a self-leveling 2-direction laser. You're going to need a permanent marker to make the marks. You're going to need a measuring tape or a ruler. Now, if you have one of the 90-degree angled rulers, those are perfect. You're going to need your template rack if you have one. I'm using a magic rack.
You're going to need your wooden rack, and if you have two different sizes of racks like I do, you'll need both of them. You'll need three balls. It's not in the picture, but you'll need three balls. Those will be 2¼ inch regulation. You're going to need paper spots. These are Tefco master spots if you use them.
Okay, so now let's talk about the marks themselves and what they're for.
All right, so this is the rack itself. Um, so you've got a center line that runs vertically up the table. That is for spotting balls and for aligning the rack. When you spot balls, you spot them straight down if there's anything impeding. I have the complete rack outline. You can do that for any game, but it's primarily for straight pool on my table, simply because you need to know where the rack is so you know whether a ball's in the rack or not. You can do the full rack outline for your wooden rack for all games if you want to, or you can just do the rack bottom. Now, in my case, I have two different sized racks, so I have both of them. I have the bottom of the rack uh, as well as the outline. So we have the foot spot marked, and I have a paper spot on there because when I originally marked this, I marked it about 1/8 of an inch off center, and which is why I went back and redid everything using a laser rather than the way I was doing it. Um, so the foot spot applies to all games, and then there's a small hash there. That is the bottom hole in the magic rack. If you're using a magic rack, uh, a template rack. All three of those little small hashes are for magic racks. Um, if you're not using magic rack, you don't need to mark those. Also, I should mention that those marks are the same whether it's a magic rack, an Accu rack, one of the circle turtle racks. It doesn't matter. Those holes are there in all of them. So these other two marks are for the WPA rules with the 9 on the spot. You mark the top and the top ball, the one ball, and the bottom hole in the magic rack or the Accu rack, whichever you're using. The measurements between those are 19.5 centimeters is the full length between the bottom of the one ball and the bottom of the ball in the rack. And then 9.75 centimeters is the distance between the bottom hole in the magic rack and the bottom of the center ball, the 9 ball. So, and those measurements are for American pocket billiards using regulation 2¼ inch balls. Up at the head of the table, you have the head spot, the breaking box, and then of course the head string itself is marked. And I don't have a label on that, but this head string is the line that's running vertically up the table. And finally, you have the center spot, which is in the dead center of the table between the two side pockets.
So, something I want to mention before we get started here, some of you are going to be tempted to mark this in pencil so that you can verify everything before you make the final mark with the Sharpie. Now, on any other surface, I would absolutely agree with that. I do it all the time. On the carpet, if you use pencil, when you go back to erase the pencil, which you have to do before you put the Sharpie on it, if you go back to erase a mark that's in the wrong place, you will create a white spot on the table. I do not recommend pre-marking in pencil. Be very careful. We're going to use a laser to do it. The laser is going to be way more accurate than any other way you would possibly do it. So when you're doing your markings, when you're getting ready to do your markings and we're using the laser to find our locations, be very, very precise, okay? If you're not extremely precise, you will find that you have bad markings. You do not want to use a pencil to do this. It'll leave marks that you can't get rid of. They're there forever. Okay, and I found that out on my old cloth, so never again will I use pencil to pre-mark. I'll just be very careful in getting everything set up so that when I'm ready to make my mark, I can just do, and you'll notice I talk about just putting a dot under the rail on each of these first, and that's the reason I do that, is so I can go back and re-verify as many times as I want. We don't have a mark on the playing surface, and when we need to redraw the lines, we can do so without having to get the laser back out and redo everything. All right, so with that, well, let's get on with it. All right, so the first step is going to be to get our laser ready by putting the base of the tripod attachment on the laser. Austin Powers reference if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't, where have you been? All right, so going to get the laser on the tripod. Obviously, you've charged up the laser. So now we've got a laser on a tripod. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is the laser has a lock on it. Let me go back and show you the lock. So on the side there's a switch, and what that does is this is a self-leveling laser. So if it's tilted, the laser inside will tilt with it to keep it vertical. Okay, well, because we're pointing down at the table and your tripod may not be exactly level, just go ahead and lock the laser in place. Okay. So throughout this video, you're going to hear me talking about how my first markings were a little bit off, and that's why I have, if you were to look at it, that I have 2 spots at the head spot, and I actually ended up using a paper spot to cover a mistake on the foot spot. Let me tell you what I did. I took my laser and I just held it up and pressed the lock button, and the laser inside, it's a self-leveling laser, so the laser tries to stay straight up and down. Well, the laser inside was at an angle, and then when I put it on the tripod, the body was straight, but the laser was turned, and you'll see what that looks like when I'm actually doing the laser, and you'll see it. It is the problem with it is that you get lined up on the 2 dots, especially on the long one, and since the laser is at an angle, it actually means that you're not marking directly under the spot. Your laser's on the spot, but underneath it's at an angle. So that 1-inch drop from the nose of the cushion down to the playing surface means that the angle, the laser is off. So here's how to properly level your laser for the purposes we're using it for. So you can't just leave it loose, okay? If you leave the laser just loose inside, you'll find that when you tilt down onto the table, the laser will tilt itself up, and you end up with a laser only from here to there. Okay, we want the laser all the way across. So here's how you do that. So first of all, you take your laser, and let me show you this. So if you look on the back wall there's the laser, and you can see it leveling itself. So it's going to level itself and get itself perfectly straight across. Okay? Now, once it's leveled itself perfectly straight across, now on the side there's a button, and I'll show it to you. Once it's level straight across, you just click the button. Okay, we don't have to be perfect, we just have to be close. Okay? So now, when I tilt it down, the laser stays straight. See that? So now I get a laser all the way across. So we have to lock it to get the laser all the way across. But we don't want to lock it with the laser all sitting at an angle to start with. We want the laser to be we want the laser to be reasonably straight when we do it. Okay, so we got our laser locked in place. Now we're going to turn it on. You probably can't see. I'm going to turn off the lights and see if you can see it now. So what we're doing is the very first thing we need to do is get our, we need to identify each of 3 lines. And so I'm hoping you can see that. So the 3 lines that we need to be able to do this are the head string, second diamond up all the way across the table, the foot string, second diamond down all the way, second diamond from the foot all the way across. Now we're not going to draw that line in. I'm going to show you how we do this. So we're going to need to have the line identified for the foot string, which is the second diamond from the foot of the table. And we're going to need the center line of the entire table. Okay? Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to get our laser, and by the way, this is a lot easier if you have a friend that can help you. What we're going to do is we're going to line up the laser so that it's on that second diamond on this side and through the center diamond on this side. Now I know you're not seeing that from the down view, overhead view. My light's too close. I can't get the camera above it like that. But all we're doing is we're getting a straight line from this second diamond to that second diamond. And then what we're going to do is underneath the rail, we're not going to draw the line yet. What we're going to do is underneath the rail, as far back as you can get it, you're going to mark where that laser is. Okay, just put a little dot there. I put a little tick there so that, and we're doing that for 2 reasons. One, it's going to make it easy for us to do this when we're actually drawing the line, and second, in the future, as this line wears down that's on the table and we need to redraw it, we'll know where those, we'll be able to just connect the dots, right? Okay, so we're going to do that there. We're going to do the same thing here, where we're at the second diamond on this end, and then we're going to come down, and we're going to have to do this on each one of these, right? So we're going to come down here, and we're going to get it going up the table long ways. I'm hoping this shows up. We're getting it long ways from the center of the diamond to the center of the diamond. That gives us our center. And again, we're just putting the little tick mark under the rail. Now, we're going to continue around the table, because when you were on this side and you're putting it center of that mark, center of the diamond through the center of the diamond, what you will find is that there's no laser under this side. There is on this side. So we're getting it, we're going to go all the way around the table, and we're going to do the same thing from this side. Center of the diamond through center of the diamond, put a tick mark on the table under that rail. We're going to go to this one. Center of the diamond through center of the diamond, put a tick mark under the rail. And from the head of the table, again, second diamond through the second diamond. This long one is much easier if you have somebody moving the laser and somebody else down there telling you which way to move it. Much easier. And then we're going to mark under the rail on this end. Okay, so now we've got a tick mark under each rail in each position. Okay, and these are little tiny tick marks. Let me show you what one of them looks like. Okay, it's just enough to be able to tell where that spot is as the table wears. Now, you will have noticed that while I've been moving around the table, this line is off center, and that's okay. All right, all we're worried about is the vertical line. We don't care if the horizontal line is straight or not. We're just looking for one line in each of these positions. Okay, so now we've got all of our stuff. Now I'm going to leave the laser here, and I'm going to come down to this end of the table. Okay? I'm going to lay my straight edge, my small straight edge, under the rail, through that dot that I made. I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm going to mark that line. Okay? I'm laying it right alongside the laser. I can see the laser, and I'm putting the Sharpie on top of the laser and starting to mark that line. Okay? That's going to give me a partial line. It's only going to give me part way up. Then I'm going to take my long straight edge, I'm going to set it alongside that laser. So the laser's running right along the inside edge of that straight edge. Now I'm not perfectly lined up because I'm doing this to show it to you, but you can see there, the laser itself, I want this straight edge to be right up against that laser. Actually works better if I lay it on the side. Okay, so I want the straight edge to be right up to the laser. Okay? And then I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to mark it almost all the way up to the spot. I'm not going to mark across where I think the spot is because it's very easy to mismark that. Okay? Then I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to have the bottom of it along that line that I just marked. In the middle of it, I'm going to lay this right along the laser again. And this one, I can go ahead and kind of guesstimate the center of the pocket, and I'm going to draw a little line. Okay? Drawing a little line. We'll come back to that line in a minute. Then I'm just going to take the straight edge, I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a little vertical line across where I think the second diamond is. Okay, now let me tell you, if you miss, it's okay. You just extend the lines out to cross. As long as it crosses, you're good. Okay, now that gives us all three of our vertical markings. Now we're going to do side to side, right? So I'm going to come back over here. Again, I'm going to get lined up second diamond to second diamond. And again, I am not trying to get perfect here. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. Okay, and now I'm going to take my straight edge once again. By the way, it's easier to mark if you lean over the straight edge rather than trying to do it like this, because the shadow of the pen will cause the laser to disappear. So if you reach over, you'll find that you can reach over and make this marking and see it the whole time you're marking it. Okay? So I'm going to take my straight edge, I'm going to mark the line out from there. And again, on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get right alongside my laser, and I'm going to mark out, without going all the way to the end, I'm going to mark out, three-quarters or most of the way out. Okay, that gives me two lines on the sides. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and take my long straight edge, and I'm going to connect those two lines. I'm going to get lined up exactly on those two lines. The laser should be right alongside it, just like it was. And I'm going to go ahead and mark out the rest of my head string. Okay, I'm going to go all the way across now. And at this point, you should have a line directly across at the second diamond. All right, now I'm going to go over. I'm going to move my laser to the center of the table. Now we didn't mark these under the rails because there is no under the rail here. I'm going to set my laser at exactly the center of the two side pockets. I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'll use the small straight edge for this one. The small straight edge is easier to work with on these small lines. So I'll take my small straight edge, I'll get it lined up with the laser, and then I'll just mark across. And now I should have a cross in the center of the table. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to slide down second diamond to the second diamond. I'm going to get that line exactly right. Okay, and then I'm going to take my straight edge, and again I'm just going to put a little tick mark. I'm using this line, this vertical line that I drew. I'm using that to give me a guide for that tick mark. Okay, once I've got that tick mark in, it's not a tick, it's actually a line. I'm going to draw a line there, maybe about a half an inch. I'm not going to make it very big, I'm going to make it small. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to line up my laser once again. Okay? And if I do it right, it should be exactly on the line that I drew earlier. And I'm going to take my straight edge, I'm going to put it alongside that laser, which should be the same line I drew earlier. Okay? And I'm going to extend that through the spot. Now I'm not going to go any further, I'm going to just go up past the spot, so I've got a little cross right here where the spot would be. All right, now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do my template rack first. Okay, so right now we've got a vertical line, we've got a cross where the spot is, we've got a center spot marked, and we've got our head string all the way across and our head string marked. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our magic rack or whatever it is we're using, we're going to line it up so that the hole on top is on top of our cross and the cross is centered. You should see that the line goes down, and actually if you look at the inside edge of the rack, that should be the easiest way to tell if it's centered perfectly. And we're done with the laser now, by the way. So we can turn the laser off, we can put that away, we're done with it. So now I'm going to take my magic rack, I'm going to get it lined up. Okay, the bottom should be straight on that vertical line. I'm going to take my pen, I'm going to press down on the magic rack without moving it. If it moves, I'm going to line it back up. I'll press. All right. So that's not working real well. I'm touching it and it's moving, so I'm just going to take my straight edge and drop it on it. Okay? I'm going to use my straight edge to hold it down. Now I'm going to take my pen, and in the bottom hole of the rack, down here at the bottom, I'm going to make a little vertical or a horizontal hash. Okay? And that's how I get the bottom of the rack. Now, I need to also, I'm now going to go ahead and set the one ball and these two outside ones in place. By the way, the AccuRack, the markings are in the exact same places. All right, now I'm going to take the biggest of my wood racks. I'm going to set it in place, and I'm going to pull it back until it's exerting just a little bit of pressure on the balls. All of the balls should be touching. Okay? So I'm just going to pull it back until all of the balls are touching. All right, so now all the balls are touching. going to hold the rack down, and I'm going to use my Sharpie to mark all the way around. Now, you remember I said that this would be the biggest of the racks. Now, I happen to have 2 racks. If you only have 1 rack, you're done with the rack. For me, I have 2 racks. Okay, and they're 2 different sizes. So I've got the big rack, and I've just marked it. And now I'm going to take the small rack, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to get the rack so that the balls are touching it. I just want them to barely be touching, and I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to mark the bottom. Okay, and when I mark the bottom for the small rack, I'm not going to do it all the way around. I'm just going to do, you know, 3 inches or so on either side, all the way, so like a 6-inch line. I'm not going to do all the way out to the rounded corner. All right, and the reason I do that is for straight pool. If you don't play straight pool, you don't need to do these rack markings. Well, let me take that back. Straight pool, 8-ball, 1 pocket, you'll do the rack markings. If you don't play those games, then you don't need them. Okay, so now I've got my rack marked. I'm now going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to, again, get on this line that I drew, and I'm going to go up just a little bit past the top of the rack, okay? I'm not going to go way up, I'm just going to go a little bit past the top of the rack. Now, the bottom of the rack to the center of the spot is 9.5 centimeters. I'm sorry, 19.5 centimeters. So, the distance from the bottom ball to the center, we want to get exactly halfway in there, is 9 centimeters and 75 millimeters. So it's 9.75 centimeters. Okay, so if you measure from where you put the cross down here up 9.75 centimeters and you put up another vertical mark, okay, you mark that. That's going to be the bottom of the magic rack for the 9 on the spot. So if we line this up with our vertical line, remember we went, you know, about a ½ an inch above the rack with our line. So if we line up vertically with the bottom of the magic rack, where we just said, you know, you start from the bottom, come up 9.75 centimeters, and then you put the bottom of the rack there and keep it vertically aligned. The top of the rack, again, we're going to take our pen and we're going to do just a little vertical or horizontal hash, and that gives us our spot. That spot is used when you're racking the 9 on the spot. That will put your 9 ball on the spot. So again, measurement: 19.5, 9.75 centimeters, 19.5 again from that bottom one, and you put the mark and it should line up. But I use the rack to do it because your rack may be a little bit off or what have you. So just to be safe, use my rack to do it. Okay, so now we are done with the bottom of the table. We only have one more thing, and that's if we want to mark a breaking box. We have our center spot marked up here. You're going to measure from the center spot 9 inches down the line, and you're going to put just a little mark across. Okay? Same thing on this side. Come to this side, start at that center spot that you have marked, come 9 inches this way, make a little mark. Now, the last thing we're going to do is all these little marks that we have, we're going to extend those out. So I'm going to take this, and I would rather use a ruler for this, and I did use one but I don't have it here handy. So I'm just going to use this straight edge. Actually, what I used was I used a triangle. You know, the right angle ruler that's used for 90-degree angles. Where I could lay one side on there and then mark it. And I'm going to use my straight edge and I'm going to mark that down for about an inch. I'm going to come over here to my center spot. I'm going to extend that line to make it visible. I'm going to come over here with my 90 degrees. That was with my 90-degree angle also. And I'm going to do the same thing there. I'm going to take this, I'm going to make this horizontal line so that the two legs are the same length. I'm going to make it the vertical line so the two legs are the same length. And you can use 1 inch for all of these and it'll look really good. Down here, I've already got my hash marks, I've already got my straight lines, I'm already done with that. And now your table is marked. We've done it with literal perfection. And now your table is ready for play. We can take all our tools and put them away, and you're ready to go. And again, you only need the markings for the games you play. And so this is a completely marked table. It will cover every game that I play. The only one that's not on here is placement pool, and that's because you can't do permanent markings for placement pool. All right, so with all of that done, the very last thing we're going to do is if you're going to use a paper spot. Now, you don't need to use a paper spot. I don't like paper spots. The only reason there's one on here is because my very first measurement, I messed it up and I was off by about 1/4 of an inch, so there's a spot in the wrong spot, and I used the paper spot to cover that up. But if you're going to use a paper spot, take your spot. Master spots are the ones that I use by Tefco. Take it, pull the paper backing off, and you're going to have to eyeball it to stick it on there. There's just no other way to do it. Eyeball it and stick it right on top of your the cross that's on the line here. All right, so that's it. That's how you mark your table for every game. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you like what you saw, hit like, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell, and we'll see you next time.